Hi, welcome back to the channel. My name's Adrian. Today I'm taking my review of Vagabond, which promises to be a Pulp fantasy RPG. It is BX compatible. D20 rules light system. This is the first video that I've done since I've had a couple of personal issues, let's say. So I'm kind of just, trying to ease back into it. But this is a really good book. I've been reading it, playing with it. It's got solo rules. I should probably cover that. And you can also, and I'll show you on the drive-through RPG link where you can get this. There's like sort of like a mini sort of player's guide that you can pick up. But the solo rules and dungeon building rules are really good. It's a fantasy world. And it does a couple of things that I don't think I've ever seen in systems before. I did pick this up with affiliate link money. So for everyone that uses my drive-through RPG affiliate link, this is proof that all that money goes back in. So I'll just take you over to drive-through RPG, because this was recently kickstarted, but I'd never heard of it. It sort of popped up in, I think it was like 2 or 3 on drive-through RPG for a while. I was like, there's a lot of people downloading this, so I'm going to get this. Several people on my Discord recommended it and talked about it too. So, and as you can see, it's got some good reviews in here as well already. And it comes in softcover, hardback cover. I've got the hardback cover here. Just behind me, you can just see over my right hand shoulder. And if you are going to pick it up, you're probably going to want to include the PDF, because when you do, you are going to get some character sheets in here as well. So you're going to get a interactive character sheet and a single one. You can just print it direct off the PDF, or go completely old school if you've got a photocopier and you know what such a thing is. That is another way of doing it, but I think we're sort of more into printing now. But as you can see, the price comes here, so it's about £30. So what's that going to be? Sort of 42 US dollars, somewhere around there. And obviously, if you are going to pick this up, I'll put an affiliate link down in the video description below. And obviously, because say any money that's generated on there, I always put it back into buying more books. It comes in 204 pages. We'll just sort of go through a little bit here. So, drawing inspiration from medieval romance stories and dungeon synth and dungeon crawls, Vagabond is a tabletop role-playing game that blends high school practicality and modern TTRPG expressions. 1 to 6 player, so it does come with solo, co-op, and guided play support. I know I've played this as solo, and I've co-opted a couple of characters because the book has got an adventure in the back and I died. So it's I then reran it with a couple of characters and it was slightly easier. But if you've watched any of my videos on my live channel, you'll see I'm not the most prolific at succeeding dice rolls. Playtime, as you imagine, coming here 2 to 4 hours and 12 plus on here. But it said, D20 rules light co-op, deep light loaded character creation. That is true. Basic expert compatible. The easiest system to GM, not necessarily sure. But when we get into some of the rules, because the monsters don't make any attack rolls, so it's got that Mork Borg, Pirate Borg-esque, where the players are making all the defense rolls constantly. Light maths, high action, 18 classes, 7 ancestries, 100 plus perks. Think feats when we get into it. 60 spells, and the spells are so open. It's brilliant, because it gives you a guide for the spells, and then the player characters will decide how they want to do this. All covered. 200 plus stat packs for creatures and standard NPCs, 100% human. And here's a link here. If you want to get actually I'll just click on it and show you. So you can get the basic Heroes Handbook. So if you want to come into this and just try it for, you can download these for free because it is on pay what you like. However, I will always urge you to just pay something, be it $1, £1, £2, whatever it may be. Give the writer and creator a little bit of cash for taking the time to offer you something for free. So that's just my thoughts on that. Right, let's get into the core rulebook. So it comes in at, it's 214 pages because of the inserts. Because as you'll see, and I was worried about this when I ordered the PDF and the print-on-demand copy, because sometimes when you get things from drive-through RPG, you don't always get the inside cover. And what I like here, what the creators have done, is, so this inside cover here, which obviously I'm assuming if you've got the Kickstarter one, that's going to be your inside cover. And you've got the same at the back of the books. This just is a really good summary of the rules. I'm going to skip through it because I'll go through the rules as we go. But what they've done is they've blanked page and extra page in the PDF, which is why the PDF has got, so it's coming at 214 pages, where it does say it's only 204. But yeah, this is, you don't really need a Games Master screen because most of the rules are in the inside cover and the back side cover, which is great. Then gets the credits. So the lead designer is a Tayron Pounds. I think that's how it's pronounced. They've got all the editors, game mechanics, play testers in here, art, logistics. Load of acknowledgements from a variety of creators, from John Harper for Blades in the Dark and David Black for the Black Hack. There are others. I'm sorry if I'm, I don't want to sort of spend forever sort of reading out all the acknowledgements in here. So we're going to get then straight into the content. Good thing is hyperlinked. Always appreciate a hyperlinked PDF in here. So we're going to go through the initial introduction. I love the fact he uses preamble, because I think I'm one of the only people I know that uses that word preamble, and I don't think I've ever seen it inside a book. This is going to talk about discretion, the basics of the game. And then we're going to get into adventure, and this is all of the rules that you're going to need, mostly. Because when we get into hero and character creation, that's going to give you some more of the rules and how it works. So there's a little bit, as I go through this, I did feel, I think this is more of a final thought, you've got everything in here mostly, but it does seem a little bit disjointed on where you can find things. But I'm here to help explain, and I'll take you through. So we're going to get through character creation, skills and saves. We'll explain the difference between the two. Your 7 different ancestries, 20 different classes, which are all really good, actually. There's even there's like this merchant class in here. And one of my players loves playing merchants, and I always think people are, oh, it's a merchant, but yeah, one of my long-term players loves playing a merchant. We're going to get into the gear section, magic section, which is about 20 pages, but it's really good. The bestiary is a big chunk of the book, as it's said on Dwarf RPG, 200 plus stat blocks in here, and because it's player-facing, the Games Master's not doing any of the rolls. Obviously, you could do the damage rolls. Don't let the players roll their own damage rolls if you are going to run this as a Games Master and not solo. You then get all the rules for quest building and sort of solo play in here, and then you get a sort of starting adventure, this ruinous league in here. Then we get some appendixes, again, more tables, guides for solo, guides for conversion tables from converting. There's actually, obviously we'll come to it, but there's a really cool table at the back of a load of BX and OSR adventures, and then it's got you the guides how to convert it. Big list of backers from the original Kickstarter, and then you've got the inside page. There is no index, which is kind of sad, because you'll see as I go through, it can be a little bit tough to get through just where things are. But the preamble page is a couple of pages here just talking about the writer's background, into role-playing, what the inspiration for Vagabond, etc. in here. I'll let you read this and discover it in your own time. Then we're going to get into touchstones, so manga, anime, films, literature, music, and things that help inspired or play this. So video games like Dark Souls, Darkest Dungeons, films in here, Army of Darkness, The Beastmaster, Excalibur. So yeah, that's the sort of vibe you're going from. Still going through, we're then going to get into discretion and talking about session 0, so sort of planning it out. And then the section that always fills my comment sections with love or hate, which is lines and veils here, so things that it doesn't want you to talk about. And some of them I think are obvious. I always have the rule, don't be a dick in a game, but there's some in here that quite obviously, I think, you shouldn't include things like racism, things like that. However, it does include stuff like rats, spiders, starvation. Be it, read into that whatever you like. Personally, use my don't be a dick rule. I like it sometimes when creators put these in. Other times I don't. But, you don't need to comment about it if you don't like it. It's a part of the role-playing community, especially if you're playing with strangers. You kind of need to have that session 0, set some groundwork in there. Again, don't be a dick. But right, let's get into the basics. Most of the dice rolls in this game, you're going to be using a D20 or a D6. So it's going to, there are a few things, D4, D8, D10, all the way through to a D20. It has got exploding dice. Apparently, after, I think, 5 or 6 reads-throughs and some plays, I don't think I've seen anything with an exploding die. But if there's an exclamation mark here and next to something, you roll a 6 on it, you roll it, and if you get another 6, you just keep going. I've had a look at the weapons and equipment. It's obviously in here somewhere. but I don't know. The game uses countdown timers, sort of blades in the dark. I don't tend to use countdown timers. I tend to use dice, so I've just put a D6 in the middle of the table. I know because, well, it saves printing and colouring in bits, and I just quite like the sort of tactile element of, you know, turning that dice down. But it's really up to you how you want to do it. The stats, we've got 6 stats in the game. Technically 5, but it does throw a 6th in. So we've got might, which is your strength, endurance, dexterity, dodging, agility, awareness, perception, noticing things, reason, your deduction, intelligence, then presence is your charisma, soul, and wit. And then finally, the 6th non-stat, I think, is luck. And the reason for that is they all range from 2 to 7. And then there'll be different things that affect that and skills and stuff that are added. But luck is just used in a different way. You don't really roll on your luck, okay? Where the other stats, you're adding to skills to sort of roll over. I'll explain that once we get over the page. So skill checks, how does the game work? You roll a d20, compare it against the check difficulty. You roll a 20, it's a crit. You roll a 1, there's no fail or auto fail in here. In general, if you roll a 1, you are failing. And to pass, you need to get above or equal to the difficulty. Now, this is the bit that I found the hardest to find. To determine the difficulty, subtract the check stat from 20. Okay, so if the player has a skill of 5, then you will just be rolling 15 or more. It's as simple as that. Or if you're trained, that skill would become 10. So then you're rolling 10 or more, okay, plus any bonuses and stuff that you're going to get to roll over it. That's it. That is it in essence. When you roll a natural 20, you're going to do a crit. And on that crit, on for the attack or casting, you're going to get to do additional damage most of the time. If you get to a situation where the odds are in your favour, you're not going to roll 2d20 with this though. What you're going to do is roll a d6 and add that to your d20. And if you get disadvantage, you're going to roll a d6 and take it off. Now, this is called Favour and Hinder in the game. And I like it. It's the first time I've ever seen this. I'm sure it's probably not the first game that's added this die bonus, but I just like it because 2d20, I do like advantage, but sometimes it can be swingy. And just getting that extra d6 or adding that d6 means, you know, on average, you're going to get an extra 3.5 or minus 3.5, which is really cool. This game uses hit points, and as your hit points go down to 0, you will eventually die. And obviously, you do get to take armor off the damage rolls. So talk about dying quickly, because it's very quick. Once you get to 0 hit points, your body is destroyed, or if they have 5 fatigue. We'll come on to fatigue once we get to page 13. Dead beings can't regain HP. And just say, on death, just roll up another character and get the Games Master to slide you in where it's convenient. We've got some keywords down here. So armor is always subtracted from the attacks. Immune, you're unharmed to the damage. Weak ignores armor and immune and deals 1 die of extra damage. That is most of the rules in here. That's really all you need to know. And so it is covered on the inside or the backside cover. We've got an adventuring overview here. It's going to talk about distances. There's only 3 distances in the game. Keeps it simple: close, near, and far. Now, I've been playing this a little bit theatre of the mind, and then I found it actually was easier gridding. So I don't know whether this game is designed to be gridded in play, but it does feel a little bit easier once you're looking at distances. But close is within 5 feet, so that's sort of next to you. Near is 5 to 30 feet, and far is 30 feet beyond that. We've got different types of vision, from all sight, blind sight, dark sight, and semi-sense and telepathy, and all the details are in here. So things like can see in the darkness, can see by hearing and stuff. And that's going to be key more once you get to the end for the Bestiary, and actually some of the spells effects that the players can actually cast. When we look at time, a round is going to be 10 seconds, a minute is going to be 6 rounds, and so forth. But the main one that you're going to want to pay attention to as well is a scene or a shift, because some of the spells will last for a scene, some special abilities or downtime things or resting will be shifts. Okay, so a shift is 6 hours, scene is 10 minutes. It's then going to give you the details here for, you know, falling damage, moving across difficult terrain, different speed types for climbing, clinging, flying, phase, all the rules here for mounts, different positions that the large creatures you can be in. If you're flanking is in here, it's alphabetized, but this book so needs an index because it's here. But as you go through, if you miss it especially if you're like me, dyslexic, you're just coming back to a book going, did I read that rule? So this is one of the ones that this has taken me a lot longer to actually get the review out, because I've been sort of playing it and not finding the rules. Like I say, there isn't anything that I haven't found in here, but it feels like a homework is probably the best description for getting into this, especially for such a light game. Details on rest in here, so you're going to take a shift, doing no activity, and if you're going to go to lodgings and stuff, it's just details of the price in here as well. And then once per shift, you can eat some rations, drink some water, and take a breather, which is going to help you regain some of your hit points equal to your might. Different details here on temperatures and extreme temperatures. Damaging objects if you want to, punch through stone or wood. Punch through stone, great example by me. But you get the point in there. Obviously, you're going to want to take a hammer to punch in through. Section on clocks, if you're aware of Blades in the Dark, anything along those lines. So you're going to be using clocks for moving through the dungeons, especially when you're using some of the solo rules and for encounters and stuff like that. And this will just take you through, and it gives the players a little bit more urgency. So, it's got an example here about, you've got 4 days until the prince is hanged. Need to sort of, you can just colour it in as you go through. Statuses, page 13. This is a really important page. You're going to either want to print this off or make sure right in the back of the book exactly where it is, because most of the things that you can't find in this book are in this page. So it's things like fatigued, which is one way that you can kill the players off by accident. That it's in this section. So I'm gonna say it again. It needs an index. It really does need an index in here. The section here on encounters, because eventually things are going to happen, diplomacy is going to fail, and you're going to start a fight, or they want to start a fight with you. And initially you're going to determine the distance of whether they are near, close, or far, as well as it's got an NPC reaction in here. Once you're then heading towards combat, it does say, from an initiative point of view, players always go first, so they all get their turns, and then the Games Master is going to run his turn. I'm, again, ignoring the fact that you're going to be playing this solo. Sometimes I think people might not like that, of all the players going first, but there's plenty of games out there that do that. But it does say that if you want a more strict order, then you just go clockwise from the Games Master, round the table, they all go first, then comes back to the Games Master. And on your turn, what can you do? You get one move action, and then one attack, cast, hold, jump, rush, or use. Now, some of the classes will break this rule, and they will allow you to use your move action to do something addition once we get into that. But again, we'll look at that once we get to the classes. And then obviously you're going to move as far as your movement. From a defending point of view, or the opponents automatically hit. So every time you're going to take an attack, they will hit. And then as a player, you're going to get to decide whether you want to block it or dodge it. And you're going to roll against your save. And obviously if you can pass that sec, from the block point of view, you can block it. If you dodge it, you're going to get out of the way. But when you do save the pass, it does say you ignore one of the attacker's highest dice roll damage. So if they have got multiple, there's a good chance you might be taking some additional damage. Now, combat is going to end once the enemies are dead. They either surrender or they run away, which is going to bring you onto the morale check. So we've got morale in here. And the morale checks come in very early, actually, for this, which is quite cool, because the enemies make a morale check on the first death in the group. So you could go into a combat and, just slaughter one goblin right at the start. And they're going to do that morale check and decide whether they're going to sort of just flee there and then or surrender. So that's quite cool. But also, once you go through more than half of them, again, they're going to make that other check. But because this is a solo game, what we need to do here is look at the zone section here. So all the creatures will either be frontline, midline, or backline. And there's a really good example over the next page on how they react. And then once the Games Master has his go with his creatures, they will have a turn order in the way they're going to try and do things, okay, if they've got multiple actions. So we'll just look at this griffin here, which is quite good. So we've got hit points, 31 hit points. It's got a fly speed of 80 and a walking speed of 30. A d4 of them are going to arrive. Morale check is an 8. So that's, you're going to roll 2d6 and got to get above that. So you need a 9 or more for it to run away. It's got 2 armor here, so you're just going to deduct that off your damage. And it's got a weakness to shock, so it's going to take a little bit of extra damage. But its action, this has got a multi-attack action, so it's got 2 claws and 1 beak. So every round it's going to attempt to do that to the nearest person. But let's look at these zones and how these zones work. So we've got a front line, they will always try to get to the front. The midline, they will always try to get the front, but Once they get to half hit points, they're going to try and move back, or the back line, they will always going to try and move away from creatures. Okay, so just remember that when you're running the stat blocks. When it comes to exploration, which is going to take you through things like crawling, how much time you're going to use, and again, using the clocks, but you're going to use the 6 segment to sort of get through the day to get people moving. Once you fill out a segment of the clock, you're then going to roll for a random encounter. Tables are at the back, so that's fine. Then randomly breaking down a door is in here, lock picking, spotting hidden is in here. It talks about the lowest luck on, being targeted for traps and different, some examples here of traps and which save the players will go against. When it comes time to traveling, again, it wants you to run those segment clocks, and every time a shift happens, you're going to make rolls for random encounters, making sure the players have got enough equipment to get there. We've got different travel speeds for different sort of vehicles that they can hire or buy, and the capacity on there. Obviously, they're going to need to forage as they go because they might be running out of food. And we've got some complications and random tables to roll. And then finally, we're going to look at downtime. And downtime generally is going to take up to a shift to complete. So that does mean that you could do a couple of shifts moving, 1 shift for resting, and always put that downtime activity in sometime during the day, so you can still craft things, arrows, stuff like that, and then you can forage for food, go hunting for animals, or if you want to, you can study to sort of open up some of the more class features. Right, character creation. Now, this is an odd one. So once we get to the first part of character creation, it's going to talk about ancestries, and you can roll a d8, and you can get from a human, dwarf, elf, or halfling. And you're like, but Adrian, isn't there 7 ancestries in here? Yes, there are. So if you're going to use a random roll, you're not going to get to the other 3 ancestries. Now, they could be considered the more evil of the ancestries, but again, we'll look at that when we get to it. But I just thought that was a little bit of a strange wrinkle in it. If you're going to put 7 in, have 7 from the start. But 20 classes, you can roll a d66 to give your random class, and stats, because you've technically got 6 stats. I don't count luck as a proper stat in here. You can either roll a d12 and then assign them as you want, or just pick from one of those, and then you're going to get some starting gear. There are some starting packs that you can go straight through to. Now, each of the skills and passives under the stats are covered in this section. So for example, might is used for maximum HP, your inventory slots, endurance saves, brawl, and melee checks. So we've got the skills in here attached to them as well, and how to work out the slots. And dexterity, they're all going to work this way. So dexterity's got this finesse skill, which is used for weapons with finesse. Things like sneaking. Then we've got awareness, so detect, mysticism, to help cast spells for witches, luminaries, and druids. Survival, and then ranged weapon is in there as well. So ranged weapon not included in dexterity. It's actually more, spotting things and awareness. Then we're going to get into reason, which is for you've got your arcana skill, your crafting skill, and medicine in here. And then finally the charisma based stuff for presence, so influence, leadership, and perform. Luck. Let's just quickly explain how luck works. So luck is going to give you a pool of luck points, and then you're going to spend your luck points on a 1-for-1 basis to grant favour on a d20. So it does say actually advantage in here. Remember, that's going to add that d6. You're going to add some of that to the roll. Not the sum of it, because obviously it's 1d6. Or you can fluke, so you can re-roll an unresolved dice you have rolled. Remember, unresolved. So if you roll it and the games master tells you you've failed, you cannot re-roll it. You need to re-roll it before you get in there. Solo variants, remember this one, plot armor. I didn't when I was running through the adventure at the back of the book, and it does say basically once per round, if you're reduced to 0 hit points, you can spend 1 luck to regain a d6 hit points. I forgot that, and I was rolling up another character. Now, saves. These are going to be used to protect the player. So these are things like when physical attacks, melee attacks, or spell attacks coming in, they're going to be rolling against it. So, for example, if you want to dodge a physical attack, then you're going to roll against endurance. If you're going against explosions, traps, things like that, you're going to go against reflexes. And then such like charms, dreadful terrors, psychic attacks, it's going to go against will. So let's have a quick look at the 7 ancestries. So the first one, we've got human, which gives you the type human-like. All of the ancestries will have this type thing in here, and the size, which is determined by speed, which we saw earlier. So as a human, you're going to gain 1 perk and training. Did I explain training? So if you've got, I did. If you've got a skill of 4, for argument's sake, you're normally rolling 16 or more, where if it's a trained skill, you get to double it. So 4 would be 8, so that's 12 or more. There's nothing in here will ever allow a stat to go over 7, because even some of the perks you can actually raise one of your stat when you get them. But we'll come on to that in a second. So we've got dwarfs, elves, halflings, which are your first main four in here. But even the halfling is a medium creature. But so, for example, the elf here is fey, where dwarf, halfling, still force within human-like. But for example, the dwarf is not blinded in the dark, so it's going to have some element of vision, and you have a +1 bonus to saves against frightening, sickened, or being shoved, and they're going to get some extra hit points because they're tough. Likewise, the elves are going to have, they're going to be better trained at either mysticism, influence, ranged attacks. They can see things better. They're also going to be naturally attuned, so they're going to get to pick one spell and actually have that from outset. So likewise, the Halfling and the Draken have got, the Draken obviously gets this fire breath, as you'd imagine, and +1 armor rating. And then we've got the Goblin and the Orc. So these three, they're not in that random table. I would just allow my players to pick normally whichever what they want to be. But I think because they're all cryptid, I think is how that's pronounced, they may be deemed slightly more evil. And it depends on the sort of campaign that you want to run for the players, really. Right, classes. Max class is 10 in this game, which, if, I come from a Shadow Dark background, well, not a Shadow Dark background, but I'm playing a lot of Shadow Dark, so don't mind things going up to 10. But every time you level up, you are going to increase your hit points, you're going to increase your level. On even levels, you're going to increase a stat by +1 as well, to a maximum +7. You may get a perk or a specific class ability. Now, when do you level up? It's up to you. You can actually give out experience, or you can just sort of give it at a point that's suitable to you. Again, it's got the level pacing and stuff in here. If you want to start your characters at 0, you can. Rules are there. What I'm not going to do is explain all of the 20 classes in here, but I will give an example of something that I think is a little bit interesting. So we're going to start obviously with the alchemist here, then through to barbarian. You can just see this wonderful artwork as we go through. Bard, dancer, druid, which is a shapeshifter, your standard fighter. Actually, let's just pick on the fighter so we can just get you an example here. So it just details, so student and the art of violence, and it gives you some iconic characters to think of from mythology or, well, maybe films. But we've got, say, Beowulf in here, Gilgamesh, and Sir Lancelot. Gives you an idea of how to play a fighter, where they're going to stand, and then their main attack action would be attack. Move is going to be flexible. Some types of packs, the equipment pack, so whether they go gladiator, knight warrior, or watchman. Key stat to take would be might awareness, and complexity is the big one I kind of want to identify. It's a 1-star complexity, so this is nice and easy for the players to get straight into. But as you'll see here, as they go up levels, so at first level, they're going to get fighting style and valor, which is the 2 abilities here. And then at second level, they're going to get momentum. And then at 3rd, 5th, 7th, and 9th, they're going to get a perk, which is like features and things like that. And so all the way through, every single level, you're going to get something a bit more interesting. Love the Gunslinger. It is complexity 3, but I always like that. Obviously, you get your archer and your rangers and stuff, but I do quite like Gunslingers over it. Luminary, one of the first casters, and this is more of a healing-based caster in here. And then we're going to get into the Magus, which is sort of exploding, elemental type things. The Merchant, say, Andy will love the Merchant. He always wants to play Merchants, I don't know why. Pugilist, you fancy a little bit of fisticuff and boxing, slightly more complicated than the fighter just because of the way some of their special abilities work. If you want to play a paladin, here's your paladin in here, so your sort of heroic type religious knight. We've got a rogue, sorcerer, vanguard, my personal favourite in here. I just love frontline. I think in 3.5 it was the Dwarven Defender. It was one of my favourite characters ever. He was just this dwarf with shields that just stood there and just got into a place to take a beating, and this is exactly what this Vanguard is designed to do with its wall abilities and things like that. Really, really cool class. And then the final 2, we're going to get the Witch and the Wizard. Perks, feats, features, whatever it is you want to call them. These are powerful. They're not as powerful as 5e, but they feel a bit more. Again, let's use sort of 3.5 as the example, because they will have prerequisites. So, for example, you might have to have a chosen stat. So advancement, we would just pick this one. So advancement, increase one of your stats by +1. You can take this perk multiple times. So you're like, okay, that's quite cool. So I could take it and take one of my stats up to 10. No, because the chosen stat prerequisite must be 7 or less. So for a Kimbo trigger here, so Dex +4, and you have to be trained in range. So attacking a close target with a ranged attack doesn't hinder the check. That's the D6, take it off. And you can move up to half speed and skip your move to make an attack. So this is what we were saying earlier about there's going to be a lot of these are going to allow you to turn your move action in that combat to something considerably more interesting. And this is one I've never really seen before, Water Walker. So Aqua, so this is just going to be sort of go. So if as long as you've got that spell, so while you aren't incapacitated, because I suppose you're walking, not sleeping or lying down about to die, you can walk on water. That's quite cool. You know, it's always going to be handy. We're going to get into the gear section here, and it's going to talk about inventory slots. And obviously, this depends on your might. We've got all the starting packs here. So this is the one where you saw with the classes, where it says, you know, which start packs you can have. I've always just gone with the starting pack. It's quicker. Talk about this all the time with Shadow Dart. People go, oh, what's Shadow Dart like for character creation? I'm like, amazing. Takes about a minute to create the character, right up until the point that when you want to do your gear, which slows things down quite considerably. This just gets rid of it. One day, someone will bring out a gear pack for Shadow Dark, I'm sure. But yeah, really appreciate this. This really does help. Then got all the stats of the different types of armor, whether it be light, medium, or heavy in here. There's sort of different weapons and the keywords or properties of this game. So whether it's brutal, so it's going to do an extra dire damage, entangle to give you grapple, things like that. So when you're looking at the weapons down here, it's going to give you the die that you're going to roll. I say, I can't see anything with exploding dice in here, so I don't know what that apostrophe is for. But, you know, if you want to go with the dagger, it's finesse. You can use that finesse skill as well. It's keen and throw in. What does keen do? Crit on attack checks 1 lower, so you're going to get a 19 and 20. I think it was called keen in 3.5 as well. Then get a load of price list tables for alchemy, medicine, beast, husbandry, books, magic, toys and games, hardware, liquor, spirits, music. List then of all the alchemical stuff in here and different things that you can build. Obviously, you've got the craft stuff, but obviously, if you are that alchemist, you can. They pick up the perk. Well, it's not a perk. It's one of the class abilities that allows them, because it normally takes a round or two to put these potions together. But what it does allow them to do is just give up their move action, bang it together, and then obviously you can make your attack and still throw it mid combat, which is really cool. And there's so many in here, you know, potions of invisibility, potion of ESP, basic poisons, potion of regeneration, etc. Spells is another one of these wonderful sections in this book. Well, like Marmite in this country, I think people are either going to love the spells or hate the spells, because one thing the spell does is it gives you a guide of how to create the spells and what you do, and there's about 60 odd in here. But it's then up to the player on whether they want to turn that spell into an aura, line, cone, cube, remote, make it last longer, increase the damage, etc. Because when you cast a spell, obviously you make check and then spend your mana, and it's going to cost you 1 mana to do a spell. However, if you want it to go into an aura, it's going to cost you +2. If you want to do it in a cube, it's going to cost you +1. If you want to do increase the damage, so all spells just do a basic damage of a d6. If you want to do more damage and do 2d6 or 3d6, you're going to be spending mana. So it gives the players wonderful freedom to do what they want. Now, and I think some people will either love this, they're going to sort of revel in the fun and excitement of homebrewing their own sort of spells and creations that they do, but possibly more inexperienced players or less confident players maybe just move away from the spellcaster initially and then just see what other people do and then come back to that on how you do it. Yeah, that's just my thoughts on it. I'm quite happy with, you know, taking a random spell like light. So the target sheds light out in the air for the duration. You can choose to do so by creating a floating note light that follows the target. Oh, I should have said every spell as well, because 20 is an actual crit. It's going to give you the impact of anything special that it does when casting, and if you pull that crit off. So, for example, on this, beings of your choice within the light you cast are blinded. And that's cool, because it's of your choice as well. Carrying on with the magic theme, and we've got relics. Now, again, this is one of those sections that I really like, because relics are magic items that are, some of them may be consumable, but most of them aren't. Some of them are fabled, so that means there's one, and there's one in the world ever. So, you know, make that quite hard to find. You bind them, so you have to bind magical items to you. Sorry, relics, let's call them relics. And you can never have any more than 3. But also, my favourite bit about relics are here in the top right. Cursed relics. I love. I know. I get a bit of heat in the comments on my videos when I say that I do love giving out cursed items. Not all the time, but just every now and again. It just keeps the players on their toes. The rules here for crafting if you want to make your own. But then we've got a table here of all the relics that are in the game. And then just all the descriptors, whether it's a spell book, things like that. Really, really good magical section. Right, we've now got about 90 pages of stats and stat blocks and how to run the creatures, because Games Master isn't doing a huge amount. The player's going to be dealing with everything, and because you can solo this, it's going to just take you through. So all the creatures are going to initially have a threat level, so that just gives you a rough idea on that number, what level the player should be to attack it. They're going to have hit points. If you want to make a boss creature, then feel free to double the hit points. Talks about speeds. The zones, we've looked at that already, whether they are front line, midline, or backline. A reminder here of the morale checks on how often they're going to run away. But there is a bonus one in here, so if the leader is ever defeated, then they will consider running away. So you again do make that morale check in there. And then it's different senses they've got, their armor, the actions they're going to take. There is a recharge ability, so some of the creatures will have a recharge, and that basically means if they're doing sort of some magical effect or special attack, they might have to wait a number of rounds before they can actually pull that off. And then if they've got any special abilities, they will be listed there. Initially, we've got some human-like NPCs in here, so things like acolytes, a fire mage, and a thug. But once we get into the index of creatures, one thing I didn't like about this is, yes, it's alphabetized, and this is all hyperlinked, which is good, but it's alphabetized by type. If you're looking, so for example, I always love to look at the stats of werewolves and vampires. They're 2 of the wonderful things that I if it's in here, it's in here. So I was flicking through, I found vampire right towards the end, couldn't find werewolf anywhere. They're not in beasts, but they are encrypted. I personally, it's just me, I would have ran this book, I think, completely alphabetical. Because if you don't know that something's an outer, you might not just be able to go and find the coatl, because you might think that might be in the beasts or the cryptids. It was just a strange one for me, the way this is laid out. But stat blocks are quite small, they're quite concise, which is good. There is a lack of art in here, but I think that's obviously reason for the book being as small as it is. There's some good art in here, but you don't need to worry necessarily about the lack of art, because it does give you, let's just pick on something. I probably should just click to the werewolf, because, being something that I quite like in here. But we've got this cool Tarask in here. Let's just pick on, I need something with a description. That's what we need. Let's go with the Willow of Wisp in here. So it's got a TL of 3.6. That's the average level of the party in it. It's a chaotic spirit moat that dwells in swamps. They are sent bursts of spiritual energy that zaps the essence of a mortal. They don't walk, they just fly, as you'd imagine, but they've got some phase ability in here. So a load of immunities, and this, I did really enjoy this. And it's one thing that I miss from other systems where you do get immunities and weaknesses, because your players are then going through a puzzle to try and work out what type of damage actually is going to have the most benefit for them. There's a little bit of the section actually will come onto it as we go through it, where, obviously if you are solo in this game, you've really got to not metagame the creatures that you're fighting against. Don't look at the stat blocks too much. This artwork here for the gelatinous cube, though, is amazing. Recently had a live play on my channel, and one of the players, sadly, well, that's what he looked like by the end of the adventure. This floating skeleton with his sword, which it's what happens when you get inside a gelatinous cube. I say that there was absolute ton of creatures in here that are taken from other games, and looks like some original stuff in here as well. So once we now get into the structure, this is going to teach you, it's kind of the Games Master section from here on in. This is going to sort of teach you how to create a random adventure along with a hook. So we've got a D66 table. So is it a fetch adventure, a kill adventure, and what sort of thing they're going to be killing. It's going to take you through the preparation, make sure they've got supplies, give a few rumours to get the quest going, make sure they plan out the travelling. Don't forget the crawling rules if you're going to take them through a dungeon. Get a couple of tables here for crawling locations, whether it's a town, a tavern, ruins, and then any sort of oddity in there. Is it scorched, haunted, hallowed? So again, we're just going to work on a lot of D66. Again, have you seen an exclamation mark? Because I still haven't seen one. I was hoping I was going to pop one up. And then it would just give you sort of an aftermath and, you know, give the feedback from the end quest on what's going on. You've got a sample here, so it talks about have a hook. Just reminds you the preparation to get there, travelling, crawling, confrontation, which is your big battle, and then resolution right at the end. Random loot table. This is the only random loot table in the game. I would have preferred more because it doesn't really cover... Well, it does-ish. You know, if you're 9th level or you're 4th level, you're probably going to want different types of loot table. But you just have to make the magic items a little bit more interesting and sort of bump them up if the players are of a higher level. But yeah, kind of, this might have been handy to have, you know, 1 to 3, 4 to 6, 7 to 10, something along those lines, because so some of those relics are amazing, and it'd just be nice to have some of those sort of pop up somewhere in here, because you're not going to want to give out those relics right at the start. We then get the adventure, which I'm not going to go through because you don't want to hear my tale of me dying, do you? But it is a you know, it's a solo co-op adventure. I should have paid attention to the co-op because and 1st to 4th level, because I just ran a 1st level adventure into it, and well, it didn't go too well. But it just takes you through the random tables, and realistically, you can use these tables when you're doing all the solo stuff as well. So it's, as much as this is sort of keyed for this adventure, these are very good going forward. And then we've got the end of the adventure, which you flip the book upside down. A table here of terminology in here for, you know, different types of things like bonus, cast, turn. Guidelines for players now, as well as games master. So it's going to talk about rules over ruling, hierarchy, working together. You know, no system canon. So, you know, there is no sort of world in this book here. And then things like any maths, you're always going to be rounding down. Some specific questions for the guide, for the players. You know, encourage them to ask questions. Low interpretation and no take you back. So, you know, once something has happened, that outcome sticks. Don't let them sort of go, I just, you know, I said that I opened the door. Well, you know, I don't know. You open the door, the door is open. You are making that reflex check. And some guides here for players, you know, the games master. So, you know, enemies versus enemies. Talk to the PCs, not to the players. Don't over prep. And talks some hints and guides about railroading. And then you've just got this little bit section here about solo and co-op. So you've got all the tables, but this is the bit where it talks about solo integrity and stuff, where, you know, you're going to see the stat blocks of the creatures. Don't cheat. You're going to ruin the fun if you just instantly look at it and, you know, go, oh, I'd normally use my axe, but I think I'm going to use my silver dagger. But even though it does less damage, because, you know, just play it the way that a normal player. Now, Appendix C is what I said right at the start. This gives you a list of adventures, and then we've got the conversion rules here on how to change them. So we've got Ava Nox in here, which I've done a review of. I really enjoyed that adventure. Do you know, I'll link that at the end of this video. Horse of Blood, actually, I think I reviewed that as well. That's a really good vampire adventure. So, you know, this is taking old school essential adventures and sort of rules agnostic adventures that you can just buy, and how to convert them in here, and, you know, details of changing the armor and whatever you need to do, and hit points and stuff. Now we have got then a list of backers, which I'm not on, so I didn't back this on there. And then we got the character sheet, which is functional but problematic. And the only reason it's problematic is because of this grey font here. Now, hopefully you can make this out in what I'm showing, but once this is printed off, and it might be a me issue and my printer not being amazing, it can be quite hard to see. So that's my main grumble with the character sheet, because but other than that, it functions really well. We've got some clocks and some travel maps, some tables, some dungeon maps. I vaguely remember these somewhere in my distant past. So you got a paper D20, paper D6. So you just I think you used to jab a pencil in it, and it gives you the number if you don't have any dice. And then you get the final table at the back. So this status bit is something you need to remember. It's there all the time, you know, and weapon properties and so front and back of the book. It's so good. that what they've done is allowed the print on demand to actually be functional and throw those extra pages in, because so many books that I pick up, when you miss the inside cover, it can be quite problematic. But right, that's the book. This has gone a little bit longer than I was expecting it to, so let me just leave you my final thoughts. I really like it. Beyond, so I've got two big grumbles. One is the layout of the book, because I don't know whether it's me. It's the general layout that some of the rules felt spread out over too many different areas. It's especially because you've got the front and the back pages that have got some really handy tables. But I think it would have maybe flowed easier in my mind if it'd been that. And the character sheet is a little bit, say, it's that the colour just needed to be darker for me, because I kind of struggle on it. But when you do buy this, if you do get the PDF copies from DriveThruRPG, you do get the pre-fillable one. But again, the pre-fillable one does have the same sort of issues and problems that you get with everything else. But let's just do the good. Bestiary is phenomenal. If you are looking for inspiration for creatures and monsters, and you just want an idea of extra creatures that it can take, I say that there are so many stat blocks in here. The way it does magic, I think it's positive. Some people will dislike it. The character classes are brilliant. So even the merchant, that dancer, which is like a proper seductress, is again interesting. You're gonna have to be careful, because if you're playing a proper seductress, then you could, as a games master, run the player against the players. So it's that one where you maybe have to be a little bit more careful if you've got the wrong type of group. But I love the fact the complexity's in there, just gives the players the good guide on how to do it. The guides for all the creatures, and when you talk about games where nobody wants to run, okay, there is a lack of games masters in our hobby, and this is probably a really good place to start, because if there's a couple of you or four of you go, just anyone really get go and grab Vagabond. It's really rules light. Working out how to pass skill check is easy. I say, you've got a skill of 3, you just roll in 17 or higher. So it's really weird, because you've got that roll under, but it's still technically roll over. There's no botch. I do like no automatic botch. Say you're failing at a 1. I can't think of a situation where you're going to roll a 1 and not pass. And favoured roll isn't going to help you either, getting that extra d6. But it just flies out combat. It like it says at the back of the book, it does. Combat just flies, because you're doing it all yourself. You've got 3 attacks coming in. You're going to make your 3 saves to try and dodge each of the attack, and hopefully reduce some of the damage down if you succeed. If not, make the players roll their own damage rolls. Always encourage that, because they're rolling their own death then. Because I think it's quite important, especially in convention play or sort of one-shots. You kind of don't want to sort of kill someone really early as Games Master. But if they fail a roll and they roll max on the damage and they kill themselves, they can't blame you. Not that no one should be blaming anyone on death, but I'm really glad that people sort of threw this my way, in my direction. It's again, appreciate everyone that uses my affiliate link that allows me to pick up stuff like this that doesn't now actually cost me anything, so I can kind of experiment and not go out of my comfort zone. But a year or two ago, I would never have considered picking up anything along these lines. So thank you to everyone, and as ever, thanks for the support and all the wonderful comments I had over the last few days. So but I'm gonna leave it there. This is great. This is a really good game, and thank you for watching, and I'll see you on the next one. See you soon.